Are you listening? Damn.
On this episode of the Endurance Hour podcast, paddles, will they make you faster or slower? Should beginners use swim paddles in their training? What is ultra gravel bike racing? And can you and should you do one before a longer triathlon event? Ice baths for recovery, pros and cons, and getting faster with age and setting PRs. Is it realistic? The Endurance Hour podcast starts right now. From Harrison, is swimming with paddles supposed to make you slower? I'm guessing that Harrison is not getting the times he suspected by using this extra tool in the pool.
Well, the quick answer is no. Swimming with paddles should actually make you faster. So you want to make sure if you feel like you are slowing down, I mean, obviously you probably know you are because you're looking at your Garmin or you're looking at a pace clock. You also want to factor into other things that might be slowing you down that day. Maybe it's lack of fueling, lack of sleep. Maybe you're just a little bit tired. So whether you used hand paddles or not for your swim, maybe you were going to be slower for that day anyways. But what the paddles are supposed to do is make you stronger. So used correctly, used in the right phase of training and the right volume, you will get stronger. Your lats, your rear delts, and your triceps, you will develop a stronger catch and push. And then when you take the paddles off, without losing that catch and that push strength, increase your arm turnover and you will go faster. So, give it some time. If over time and you're still using hand paddles and you are significantly slower after a few sessions of them, well, we want to be sure to look at a video and see what you're doing. Maybe there's just something you're doing wrong with your technique that's slowing you down while wearing the paddles. And it also just depends on what kind of paddles you're wearing.
We'll talk about beginners. Is this a tool that beginners should start out using?
Again, that's, beginner depends what kind of a beginner you are. There are various sizes ranging from extra small to extra large. So if a swimmer is a beginner swimmer, first work on technique and endurance and then start to add the paddles and work on your strength with proper technique. And yes, to answer that question, yes, a beginner can use them if they have proper technique and they're ready to use them with the right size.
How about where within a workout and how many yards should you probably have your paddles in a swim workout?
I would start with, maybe 10 to 15% of total yardage for that day and assess how your lats, your triceps, and your rear delts feel afterwards. If you're not feeling your lats or your triceps, then you're probably not ready to use them or you're using them incorrectly because those are the muscle groups that you want to feel them at. You don't want to feel them in the anterior part of your shoulder. You don't want to feel your bicep, which is the front of your arm. So you kind of just assess, keep a log of how you're feeling with them. And then slowly, like anything, slowly progress with added volume or added intensity.
Yeah, it should be understood that this is really a strength, an upper body strength tool to help you develop those things. So you're going to be working your back, chest, arms, and shoulders. They can help you develop better technique. The more that you use these, you really recognize that when you start to have your hand entry and that full pull. If you're not using the correct technique, your hand's going to be all over the place and you'll start feeling it in certain parts of your joints.
Yeah.
Good question from Harrison. Next up, this one's interesting. This is tips for preparing for an ultra gravel bike event. This is from Anne. She's got a 713-mile bike ride in March.
137.
Oh, numbers, I got it mixed up. While preparing for a 70.3 in May, so March, April. She only got a few months between her 70.3 and she's doing this over century ride of ultra gravel bike. So any tips, Wendy?
Well, first off, gravel riding 137 miles is going to be slower than riding on a road bike on the road 137 miles. And so you definitely want to first focus on strength and endurance on the bike primarily now as you're, about 5 months out from your 70.3. And at the same time, you don't want to neglect your running and swimming volume. So I would definitely say go on a bike focused training plan. And if the gravel ride is going to take you 9 or 10 hours, I recommend that you try to incorporate at least 9 or 10 hours into your weekly cycling volume while still hanging on to a little bit of running and a little bit of swimming, because you want to start your preparation for the 70.3 as well. And also, like ultra runners do back-to-back long days. So an ultra runner, let's say getting ready for a 50-mile run, may run 20 miles on Saturday and then turn around and do 20 to 30 miles on Sunday. They don't run 50 miles in one day unless they're training for 100 and they actually do a 50-mile trail race before their preparation for a 100-mile trail race. And I would do the same thing, kind of think on the same lines for an ultra bike race where she's going to be doing maybe 3 or 4 hours on Saturday, followed by 3 or 4 hours on Sunday to get that 6 to 8 hours 2 days in a row. That's really going to help her volume, her time on the bike, making sure she's doing strength training and just really dialing in on getting comfortable being on her bike. So be sure to invest in a professional bike fit, because when you're on the bike that long, you can get really uncomfortable.
Yeah, saddle time is so important for these longer events, and you'll notice that when you get into the longer triathlon distances. 70.3 seems pretty doable. I mean, you can get all those training rides in on your weekend, but when it comes to something a lot further, 100 miles plus, it can be quite taxing if your body's not used to it. These ultra gravel bike races, kind of looking that up, and it's a combination of riding on surfaces such as asphalt, gravel, dirt, some single track trails, and maintenance or B roads. And they can be hard packed dirt to small softball sized rocks in your way. And yeah, those distances between 50 and 150 miles with that type of bike and that type of terrain can really wreck your body, it seems like.
Yeah, and I think like any ultra triathlon, ultra run, ultra bike race, it's all about pacing and fueling. So as you're doing these long days, making sure you're dialing in your fueling plan, hydration and calorie wise, as well as kind of like getting a feel for what your pacing is going to be like. More often than not, we do these ultra distance gravel riding more to finish, less to be like competitive racing. Gravel riding is still a new sport in my mind for most people. And so you just want to pay attention to fueling and pacing. And I think it's going to give you a huge base of aerobic fitness as well as cycling fitness leading into your 70.3. So when you complete the gravel riding, you can, or the gravel event, you can tone down your cycling training, and then your legs are going to be fit and strong to start to ramp up your run volume as well as swim volume. So then you can get more on the traditional triathlon type of training plan for April and May leading up to your 70.3.
Good question, Ann, and good luck to you on both fronts. Here's an article topic, and we've already got some feedback on our social media, specifically Facebook. The topic is, have you ever taken an ice bath? And the results they have on this website is 40% no, 60% yes, and it's on a Runner's World website. And I thought it was interesting that their headline here is that do ice baths have legitimate benefits for your recovery? And new research suggests you may not need to invest in all that ice after all. So first of all, Wendy, what is your experience with ice baths, and did you find benefit from them? And what was the purpose behind your ice baths?
So I used to take ice baths for recovery because, reading articles and listening to certain experts that I thought they were going to enhance recovery. And I just think they feel good. I always felt really good after an ice bath, even though it's really hard to do. I always did, I got like 20 pounds of ice and made sure it was cold for a full up to 20 minutes. And, when I saw this article, first of all, I looked at the research and I looked at the data of this article. So this article was in 2020, so it's fairly new data, which I think is great, because sometimes when you're in a social media group and someone posts something, it could be from, 5, 6, 10 years ago, and it's maybe not as valid. And the one thing I liked about this article is a few science-based podcasts that I listened to have recently in the last, 3 to 4 months talked about the benefits or not of taking ice baths and how it actually limits recovery because it doesn't, when your body's trying to recover, you want the inflammation for a certain amount of time to help with the recovery and the blood flow and everything that has to do with recovery. And if you go in an ice bath too soon after a very long or high intensity training session, it's going to prohibit recovery and the adaptations. Mm-hmm. And that's really all I can speak to. I don't have it in front of me to know the exact science behind it, but I just think, I'm hearing more and more in the last 6 to 12 months how ice baths, the science isn't, they're suggesting it's changed, and that's what science is about, doing different studies and different tests. And you always want to make sure you're reading the context of it to see how valid it is.
So they found that a dip in an ice bath wasn't an advantage with aerobic exercise training, as it had little effect on performance such as faster speed or more power. They also noted that it could have a detrimental effect on resistance training adaptations. For instance, those who used cold water immersion saw a decrease in performance such as a 1 rep max amount, strength endurance, maximum isometric strength, and ballistic performance. That means the amount that you're able to lift, how long you can hold a weight in one position, and how well you can jump were all negatively affected by an icy bath. So in terms of why it's a knock to strength training and has no effect on aerobic activity, the main reason is related to modifications in muscle repair and protein synthesis processes, according to the study. He also noted that past research has reported that cold water immersion can delay muscle repair significantly because it inhibits muscle cell activity. So their bullet points was because it inhibits the muscle cell activity and delaying that muscle repair significantly. So that's really against everything I thought.
Yeah, exactly. And I think for me, it was all about enhancing recovery. And of course, if you enhance recovery, you improve performance. So one thing I liked about this article is it touched on the performance aspect as well as the recovery aspect, but they also go hand in hand.
And they were saying, yeah, you do it if it makes you feel good, but don't expect to have a good performance if you do an event back to back. But if you're going to rest and recover, lower the inflammation in your body to boost recovery. That's how we've all known it to be. And, you see athletes after a game or match or what it may be, putting ice on their shoulders, their knees, their ankles to avoid the swelling so you can have some range of motion later. So I would think that would help with injury prevention and blood flow. That's what I thought.
Right. I think it's something that again, it's new research. It's 2020. This specific article came out. So I think it's just, following other studies, following the research, and just doing some self-evaluation and why you're taking the ice bath and how you're feeling afterwards. Because sometimes the placebo effect can go a long way in helping you perform and recover better.
If it works
but
for
ultimately, recovery, I think more importantly, any recovery, it's best to eat well and sleep well. That's going to promote recovery more than anything else that's out there.
Sleep, huge. More and more, I listen to podcasts with experts in, performance. Sleep is the biggest thing that you need to have to give your body a chance to rest, and people neglect that. You got to find that right balance of if it's 7 or 8 or 9 hours. But if you want to be a hard charger, a grinder, you think, I'm going to get up at 4, go to bed at 11. I'm only going to get 5 hours of sleep, and I'm going to outwork somebody. Well, you're not going to have that potential to outwork someone if you're going on shaky legs or mind fog, brain fog. Get your rest and be as strong as possible. Same with going to school.
Right. So, and that, having said that, instead of taking a 20-minute ice bath, go lay down for 20 minutes and try to take a 20-minute nap.
Yeah. So one of the responses, this was from Anu. She writes, Yes. The question was, have you ever taken one? She goes, yes, not all the time, but I use them post races and hard training sessions. Also use contrast cold bath, hot shower, originally from Finland. So jumping into an ice cold lake is what we do for fun. English people think she's crazy. And she followed up, I have read about cold water conditioning from a book by Wim Hof, the Iceman. I've seen him lately a lot. And back in Finland, it was just done as custom, something they would do. Another feedback follow-up from this is from Kat. I can't tell if it's a guy or girl because there's a picture of two people in here. Yes, I love them. I used to sit in an ice bath after long runs when marathon training. And then I asked the person, who advised you to this? Why'd you do this? What you're doing? No one. And it was so long ago when I first tried it that I can't remember where I first saw or heard about it. But I remember feeling much less sore the days after an ice bath. So it works for this person, and it has worked for me too. And I've seen people do that and they kind of brag about it. Or they post on social media, "Hey, I'm in an ice bath and there's big bags of ice." And I've done it, and it just I don't know, it's a mental thing too. It's like, yeah, I can withstand this cold water plunge. But there's also something to be said for the heart rate, pushing blood through your system by doing this hot showers, cold baths kind of thing back and forth. There's a lot of talk about that being a good thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, I like doing it because sometimes for me, because I don't like cold, it's just the challenge of, can I sustain this cold water therapy? Like I can jump in the outdoor pool at Lifetime. It's about 55 degrees right now. I can jump in there and it's really cold. And for me, it's the high of, wow, it wakes me up. Oh my gosh, I did it. I got in cold water. I'm proud of myself because it's a challenge for me. And sometimes I'll try to aqua jog out there for, 5 up to 10 minutes. And I think it feels really good. Yet at the same time is my recovery because I just happened to get an extra hour of sleep that night, or I happen to eat more or different, and that's why I'm enhancing my recovery. So it's important to look at all variables that promote recovery when you're thinking about what is actually working.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of we have my hot tub in the backyard has been without power for like 6 months. I forget what happened to it, but I've since rinsed it out and I was preparing to get it going again, but the breaker won't stay on. So I got to get an electrician out here, but it's out there super cold. I'm thinking I'm looking to have my own, ice bath somewhere. Why not just jump into the cold hot tub and change my state? If you ever heard that phrase of changing your state, you'll change your attitude. Everything gets going. If you jump into a cold water, your blood starts pumping through your body. You get excited, start breathing heavier, and you're alert. You kind of jumpstart your body with these kind of things. Nice. I want to go do it right now. Just think about it. So there you go. Little question about ice baths for recovery. This one is about, next question here. This is a congratulations to Wendy on your success with both ultras and triathlon and 5Ks this season. You do a 5K this last weekend too, or was it 10K? What'd you do?
A 30K, 50K.
50K. Okay, I saw the word 50K and I was just going, that's right, 50. I thought it was a culmination. Never mind. Congratulations, 50K. You seem to be getting faster with age. What is your secret, Wendy?
Everything I just said. Sleep, nutrition, attitude. I think a lot of it's attitude. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, so I have a lot of background. I have a lot of experiences. And I still always believe that my best is yet to come. And so I have that mindset that I still can achieve faster results. And I am sustaining, I'm sustaining my speed as I get older. I'm not as fast as I was. I have some faster 5K times in my early 30s. And, to break 20 minutes at age 48, I haven't done a 5K under 20 minutes in, like 20 years or maybe 15 years because I did it in my early 30s. But, I like to set new PRs every 5-year increments. So when I turn 45, I'm like, okay, reset. I'm going to set new PRs in the 45 to 49 age group. When I turn 40, I'm going to hit new PRs in the 40 to 44 age group, as well as just new PRs from age 40 and beyond compared to PRs under age 40, because it does make a difference as you age. And I think more than anything is continuing to do the things I enjoy and, do what you love what you do kind of attitude is very helpful. And I know when to hold back. I mean, I've had a lot of injuries and illnesses over, the last 30 years. So I know when to reel myself in. I know when I can let it go. I know how to fuel. I got a good day-to-day nutrition plan dialed in, and I just know what to do. And that's very helpful.
With my Garmin, I'm just looking at, as you're talking here, I'm looking at my Garmin results from this last season, and I had I had a 5K PR time, but it was within an 11-mile run. I was like, what the heck? How'd that happen? Yeah, actually it was a 9-mile run, but still, it's like, it's cool that they keep these stats. You can accept a new record, but it was within the race itself. Even a 10K was within the race itself. Do you find that you get faster in certain sections? It takes your body to warm up before you get into a good rhythm on some of these 5 or 10K runs. You're able to maintain your average speed once you get up to maybe your first mile is fast, your second mile kind of come back to where you should, and then your third mile and so on. So it's to go, okay, now I found my rhythm. I can maintain this.
Yeah. And I think that has to do with my training background and all the strength I've developed over the years, as well as from season to season. Each season you start a new plan. You're at a different fitness level because you have a season or 2 or 10 or 20 or 30 years behind you. So every season you're starting it at a new fitness level, whether you took some time off or you didn't. You just have to approach each season and train where you're at and not with where you were or with where you want to be. Yes, I feel great about breaking 20 minutes. I don't know if that'll ever happen again because I'm not training for a 5K. I train more for the ultra distance races. But having said that, I still think as I age, the best is still yet to come, and I can still perform at an elite level when my attitude is there, when I want to. I mean, you have to want to do it. I'm not going to be, making these unrealistic goals. I think I'm really good about making attainable and realistic goals based on my current level of fitness when I decide I'm going to do a certain event, because I have so much experience. It goes a long way.
I've had this topic discussed with a few other people, and I've even brought it up recently with myself. And maybe you and I talked about this off air of your best performance is still ahead of you, or you still have a couple more great performances left, and getting faster with age and setting PRs, how to be realistic with that. And kind of maybe we can just talk this out here. Of when do you know that your best times are behind you, or the fact that you still have a best time in you? What do you do to assess your results realistically, or potential results?
So for me, this is when I actually look at the data, the pace data, the training data. I'm very much I train by rate of perceived effort while I collect data. And so I know, based on science and testimonials, when you hit a certain age, you have to do strength training to maintain muscle mass. And when you hit a certain age, you're going to slow down. That's just part of life. And I just knew when I hit 40, I'm just like, I just want to maintain my speed and maintain this plateau for as long as I can, because I've accepted the fact that there's going to be a time where I can no longer get faster. Now, what happened to me over the last year or two, I noticed that like a 9-minute mile or a 9-minute mile pace, my effort felt like I was running 8-minute miles, but I was running 9-minute miles. When I was running an 8-minute mile, my effort felt like what it used to be when I felt like I was running a 7-minute mile. And I was discouraged by that. But at the same time, I'm like, I think I just need to tweak my training a little bit. I think I need a little bit more volume. So then I had to make some adjustments. And then all of a sudden, my fitness started to Zoom where I was feeling more fit, where that 7-minute mile felt like a 7-minute mile. The 8-minute mile felt like an 8-minute mile, the 9-minute mile. So I knew based on those paces, mainly around the track, because it's a flat, consistent surface, that I was regaining my speed again that I used to have. And I had to make the decision, are you going to try to get faster or are you going to try to go longer? And so then I'm like, I'm kind of on the speed thing right now. I think I want to throw in a few 5Ks and actually try to see what my 5K time can be. I picked certain courses that I've done in the past, flat courses that I knew I was capable of running a faster 5K. So I think I answered your question. You do want to look at the metrics, and you want to be assessing yourself. Again, it takes time and energy and a mindset to want to be able to do that. I also know with age, you just have more endurance and more experience. And I also know when you get your 5K faster, that should translate into a faster 10K. That should translate into a faster half marathon, which should translate into a faster marathon. And so it's so important, if you're thinking about speed for any distance of racing, you start small and then you grow into it with longer distances. But going back to what I said, as you get older, you get more experience and you peak from an endurance standpoint, you peak at a later age from endurance, whereas when you're younger, you peak at a speed when you're younger. I just know that from, all the data out there.
And for those of you who are, Ironman, loyalists, and you're going to all the races, you recognize that some of these Olympic distance athletes or sprinters are moving to the 70.3s and then are moving to the Ironman distances. A lot of the famous names too, the professionals, they go longer when they get older because that speed is going away. And I never heard that before. I like how you said it. You go faster or you go longer to compensate for that line. It's like, oh, I can't quite go as fast as I used to, but I can go longer, just a tad little slower, but that means I can still outlast somebody.
Yeah. And I think that's so important for someone who's in their, mid 20s to mid 30s, that they still focus on speed and trying to get faster before they go longer. I think some athletes, younger athletes, jump into the 70.3 and 140.6 too early, where it just depends on their goals and their whys and how much time they have. But to me, triathlon is a lifestyle. So I'm like, why rush it? You're still young. You still physiologically can get faster. So why don't you focus on those shorter races as you're developing experience in the longer races? I encourage athletes not to neglect training for speed while they're younger, and that'll still carry over as they get older.
As I evaluate myself, and after this last season with the minor knee surgery, the cleanup of the meniscus, when you had something taken away from you, you really want to do it. And then I started running after the knee got it fixed up, and it's like running was so much easier because there wasn't the pain of running, and I felt confident as well, knowing the knee was fixed up, knowing that there wasn't going to be the pinching or the pain of running. And so I started like enjoying these longer runs and having more fun. And then it started hitting to me like, wow, I not wrecked my body, but my body got some wear and tear over the years. Maybe that was why I was able to do what I could do. And now I feel, and I still feel like I still have my best races ahead of me in terms of time, even faster. And I know that for me, and like you said, with experience and of racing for so many years, what you put into it. And people listening too, be honest with yourself. Have you given yourself a proper training camp, or have you done every workout that you were supposed to for those 16 or 12 weeks leading before a race? If you didn't, well, what happens if you did? You would probably do better. And I know for myself, I've rarely done everything I was supposed to do leading up to a race, which means I left something on the table which I could have used on race day. Sure, I've had a couple of good results at the 70.3 and then really a couple good full distances, but I feel like I still have a couple full distances left in me that would be PRs because I've never properly done the training like I was supposed to, for lack of discipline, lack of organizing schedule, injury, life. It is a lifestyle, and things happen that are more important than triathlon Therefore, the results will not follow your hopes when life is happening.
Right. And I think it's not a failure to not perform like you think you should or like you want to. You, again, if it's a failure that leads to a learning experience, well, then that's a good thing. But I think most people think of failure as a negative term. So I think if you're realistic and you're honest with yourself about what you've done and what the data is showing you you're capable of doing, it's having that mindset is so important, and that drive is so important to achieve what you set out to achieve. And if it doesn't happen initially, it can still happen. Some people just need longer time than others.
Yeah. As you being a coach and coaching hundreds of athletes, I'm sure over your life, and the other coaches I've talked to, the feedback from coaches who get their athletes that say, I want to do this time, or I want to finish and qualify for Kona, yet they don't do the workouts. You go, what are you thinking? And I get some frustration from one particular coach I know who says, this guy has no idea that you can't just qualify for a set event if you don't do the workouts. You can want it as all you want, but if your body's not doing the work, you're not going to make it. I don't care how
right.
badly you want it.
Again, it's not just doing the workouts. It's the fueling. It's the recovery. I think people neglect, they go to bed at midnight, then they're up at 5 a.m. because the workout told them that they have to swim at 6 a.m. Again, if you're and they don't eat breakfast, or they eat crappy for dinner the night before. I think when it comes to going back to being more of the elite qualification type of status, you got to nail those basics of getting stronger, injury prevention, recovery, nutrition, fueling, as well as, the progressive volume, progressive intensity leading up to your race.
Got to be all in, right, Coach?
You got to be all in. And I've been doing this for 30 years. I haven't been all in every year, and I know that. So, looking back at the last 30 years of where I started and where I am now, and going back to each Ironman that I've done, I know the times that I've been all in, but then I had an injury setback that took me out of running for 8 or 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. Or I had, a personal life problem that took me out of training to the training that I set out to do that I couldn't do based on life circumstances. So it's important to look at everything, and not just a specific day-to-day check the box of, did I swim today? Did I bike today? Did I run today?
Well, we finished our podcast today, and we'll be back with another one next week. In the meantime, check us out on endurancehour.com for our training plans and programs. Learn how to join our newsletter, which has great discounts. We have a weekly newsletter that we send out to you, as well as the free swim form and run form analysis option there on the website. So until then, we'll wrap it up here. For Wendy Mader, I'm Dave Erickson. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We hope to have you back here next week. In the meantime, have a great week of training, racing, or recovery. Adios.
Adios.